Good evening, everyone. This talk which is about ESP or extrasensory perception, is one that I've done quite a few times at the Moot, and frequently with all my students over the decades. And it is an explanation on the actual mechanics of how extrasensory perception works, so that you have a better understanding of the nature of your own being. Of late, there is, since the inception of neo-paganism, a lot of literature out there which, quite frankly, is rubbish. It's people trying to reinvent the wheel, and reality is a very, very different thing. I know a lot of people argue about what reality is, but as an occultist, there are certain aspects which conform to the laws of nature, shall we say. So, without further ado, I shall press forward with this one, because it's a bit of a lengthy one, and it's a bit of a complicated one when you look into it. But the first part I'll say is that everything in the universe is energy. There are no exceptions, including us. We are not high and mighty, we're just part of the living, breathing universe, and we ourselves are just energy. Anything that doesn't actually have any energy within it is in a state of entropy, and is in a state of what used to be known in the Kemetic or Egyptian circles as Hum-Dai, which means absolute death. Now, we're a long, long, long way from there. By billions and billions of years, this universe has got left, and by that time we can make our way out of it anyway. But there's a relevance to this. Okay, so touch. How does that work? Well, right the way across our bodies, we have moving into millions of different types of receptors, free nerve endings, some that examine and give you the information about pressure and texture, much numb from the neck down. So everything, the world that they discern is through their lips. This is why baby always tries to put everything in his mouth. Anyway, all these senses in our body, no matter which one, as soon as they are triggered, they release what's known as an action potential in the medical world. In the electrical or electronics, it's known as an electrical potential. An electrical signal is sent up through the nerves and triggers a specific area in the brain, which is the parietal lobe. You can see on the diagram there. That is a part of the brain that deals specifically with the sense of touch. No other. Okay? The next one we deal with is taste. This is a chemical reaction. Every time you eat something, your saliva or the water in your mouth starts to dissolve whatever it is that you've eaten down into its elements. Each one of those elements will trigger a particular taste bud on your tongue, and your tongue is designed to taste bitter, sour, salt, sweet, and something called umami, which is animal fat. Every time a bud is triggered, it again releases an action potential, an electrical signal that travels all the way to the brain. It hasn't got far to go, and it goes into the base of the parietal lobe. This is why taste, or when you eat something, it triggers a feeling, because that same part of the brain deals with sensation, touch. And this is why it's so dangerous with humans. We can become quite addicted to eating because we feel good as a result of it, It doesn't last long, and then we've got to sort something else out afterwards, but that's what it does. The next one after that is smell. Again, it's a chemical reaction. Works in a very, very similar way to taste, except there's mucus in the nose, aka snot. Yeah. And again, we break down whatever is gone up our nose into its component parts, except this time it goes to two separate different parts of the brain. One is the septal nucleus, which gives us our sense of what it is and whether or not we enjoy it, and the other one is the amygdala, and that gives us our flight and flight response, because we also, don't forget, we're not just primates, we have also been not only hunters, but we've also been prey. So a sense of smell, when you know that there is a predator nearby, was important for us in the very early days of our evolution. So we can still use that should we be attacked by some kind of predator like a lion or a tiger. Where are you going to find one in Cornwall? I don't know, but hey ho. But anyway, the receptors do exactly the same thing. Once they are triggered by a particular type of smell, they will issue an electrical stimulus to that part of the brain. Okay, does that all make sense? The next one is hearing. This is a little bit more complex because auditory centers within the temporal lobes, which are either side of your head, just above your ears. Left for left, right for right. Okay, odds see shades of grey or light. Again, the retina will, once stimulated, will create an electrical impulse, an action potential, which gets sent to the occipital lobes, which are at the back of the brain. There is, where the nerve, the optic nerve, joins into the retina, a blind spot. The human body compensates with that by doing a crossover. What comes from the right eye goes to the left side of the brain, and what's in the left side goes to the right, thereby allowing the brain to cover up the blind spots. Okay? But again, it's the same thing. It's an electrical impulse that's being sent into the brain. Now, the brain itself is just nothing more than a receiver. It is and does nothing more than issue or receive electrical impulses. The electricity it has comes from chemical actions. We are effectively a chemical battery. So if you ever watch the Matrix films, you would have seen we're basically copper tops. Within with what the food that we eat, we can either use calcium, potassium, or sodium as the three main producers of electrical potential within our body. Yes, it is sodium. That is salt. Salt is one of the most essential things to actually help our brains produce electrical potential. Without it, we start to get a bit dumbed down. But just to recap, we've got touch. That goes to the parietal lobe. Taste goes to the base of the parietal. We've got smell, which goes to the septal nucleus and the amygdala. Hearing goes to the auditory centers within our temporal lobes. They're complicated. They are very complicated because just open nerve endings as it stands, there are 4 million of those in our body. But on our spinal cord, there's only 31 pairs of nerves. That's the fact we've got signals coming from the heart, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, or the other essential organs in our body. So the body is able to do this sort of clever thing. It alters the frequency of some of the signals. They can't do it to all of them. There's just way too many. But the most important ones, like the heart and the lungs and the liver and then such like, all send their signals on a slightly different frequency to the other ones. And those signals are able to piggyback on each other. So the brain is able to receive a constant stream of information from the most essential, and then everything else in the body, hot, cold, warnings and this sort of thing, come in after. Now that system is called multiplexing. Now it's the way nature has done it is extraordinarily clever evolution, but we mimic it. We've learned about it, and we employ it in our digital audio broadcasting, DAB or DVB. Satellite TV uses multiplexing, that same system of being able to put one signal on top of another and then another, and then you're able to get multiple channels from one transmitter plus multiple audio. Albeit our systems are nowhere near as complicated as the human body, but it is exactly the same process. Electronics and engineering and physics knows all about this system that we just have naturally. Okay? So when it comes down to it, consciousness is our awareness of the world around us. And we do that through these 5 senses. Now, like I said, they're in a very specific order, because the best sense that we have, the strongest sense that we have, is touch. Our weakest sense is sight. What we can actually see in the world is very, very narrow compared to what is actually out there. So we assume that anything that's outside of our field of vision must be supernatural. It's not. It's perfectly natural. We just don't have the equipment to be able to receive it. Honeybees can see ultraviolet. They see a dandelion as not a yellow marigold, but they see it as a red and white flower. It's literally like a target, because they can see in the ultraviolet. We can't. So it's not a case that it's something supernatural outside of our, it's just outside of our equipment that we have. So the next aspect really is, what is expanded consciousness? Now, we have 5 senses, and each one of those can be expanded. And here they are, all 5. We have something called clairsentience, which is related to our touch. Clairsentience is it's just a feeling. Sometimes you can walk into a house or a room and you just get a bad feeling. It's just something wrong, or you stand in an area of a place and it's just got something out of kilter with it. Yeah, you don't necessarily know what it is, but it's just a feeling. Okay, that's clairsentience. The next one I have is clairgustance. Now, not many people hear that one, but that's taste. Now, those that experience it are quite likely. I had a student once, we went onto a battlefield down here in Cornwall, and she stood on that battlefield, and the first impression that she got was the taste of iron or blood in her mouth. She thought she'd either bit her tongue or cut her cheek or something like that, but she couldn't get rid of it. And what she was actually experiencing in this case was probably picking up on a residual of someone who had died in that battle, and as they were dying left a trace, a residual energy in the ground of the taste of blood in their mouth, and she was able to pick that up as a residual. And that's the type of thing that you'll get, a taste of. It's usually bad things that leave the most energy in the environment whenever anybody's near. Positive things very rarely ever leave anything. It's always the negative ones. Fear, death, murder, this sort of thing that leaves it. Clairolfactus, the next one, relates to smell. Now that is, a lot of people will get this one. They will get this, like a loved one that's recently passed. They will get their perfume or their cologne, or they'll smell pipe smoke or a particular brand of coffee that's always associated with that person, so that they're reminded that the spirit of that person is nearby, and that is clairolfactus, it's smell. That's a little bit more pleasant than the clairgustance. Clairaudience is hearing. Now, a lot of people get confused about clairaudience because they think you're going to be hearing voices. You don't. You hear your own voice, but it's in a different brogue, a different accent. You start hearing voices, you need a psychiatrist, and you need help, because it's something really seriously is going wrong. If you get really proficient at it, you can start to plant a voice on it through your own mind. But initially, when you're starting out in clairaudience, it's your own voice, but in somebody else's accent, somebody else's way, because it's your brain that's giving you this information. Okay. Next, and the final one, the most obvious one, is clairvoyance. It is the ability to be able to see outside of our normal vision or visual acuity. Now this is where it starts to get complicated. Those that know me and have been a victim of my lectures in the past know that I will draw information from multiple, and many scientists that work either in the quantum physics field and also in genetics in function. Now there's a bit of a use 100% of our brain, but we only understand 24% of it, and that 24% got stuck, that we only use 24% of our brain. So we do use all of our brain. We don't have redundant areas doing something else whilst we're going through life. As you can see from this particular image, it shows all the electrical impulses that are moving from place to place through the brain. And in this case, we can actually this is going to be one for the cause of ruptures. This is a male brain. There is a difference between male and female brains, not in the structure, but how they're wired. Male brains tend to be very lateral. There's a clear distinction to the left and right hemispheres, and the movement of electrical impulses tend to be along those lines, with intermittent crossover between left and right hemisphere. Contrary, the female brain, that's the top right hand corner, doesn't work like that. The way the brain is made up, it's got intrinsically two materials, grey matter and white matter. Grey matter is the brain cell, and the white matter is the connections. A male brain tends to be somewhere in the region of 60-40 to 80-20. So he has more brain cells, but he has less connections, so they're connected more in a linear fashion. She's got more connections to it, so she can process better. It's like having a string of computers. You can have one computer connected to the next computer to the next computer. A woman has all computers connected into each other multiple times, so her processing power is extraordinarily high. Yeah, and that's just simple case of now if you look at the top right hand corner again at the brain, you see there's occasionally there is this red flash. Now Professor Wilson, who was the first one to actually discover this, and it stayed like that, it became what's known as the WTF moment, because whilst he was watching it and his one of his assistants was actually in the machine, he uttered the immortal words, "What the fuck?" So it became a WTF moment. Later on, in a more polite version, it became known as the blush. Nobody has any idea why a woman's brain does that every 40 to 50 seconds. There is this massive wave that goes through the entire brain, and nobody knows why. And whether or not they actually find it, who knows. But if we get down to the nitty gritty and we actually watch brain cells and their connection, this is the type of thing that you would see electrical impulses rushing to and fro between brain cells, and each brain cell is processing that piece of information and passing it on to the next part. Now each part of the brain deals with a particular sense. It doesn't start to migrate its role to something else. The occipital lobe is specifically for sight. If you lose your sight, your occipital lobes don't move and do something else. Okay? They don't suddenly assist with hearing. The hearing increases because there are more connections. That's the way it works. It doesn't take over that part of the brain. Because in your dreams, that blind person still sees. Now, here's an interesting thing that you can do if you know somebody that's blind and you've got a good relationship with them, because this is a bit of a dodgy question if you don't have a good relationship with them. But if you have got a good relationship with a blind person and you can explain to them that, you know, this is for scientific purposes, ask them the question, what do they see? And don't be flippant with it, and don't allow them to be flippant, because they will give you an answer and it might shock you as to what. Even though their eyes can't see anything, that part of the brain is still functioning and they are still observing. Now, the brain is made up of, as you said, brain cells and their connection. The brain cell is known as the soma. This is the processor. That's the grey cell. Attached to it is the white matter, which is the interconnection, connective tissue, and they are called axons and dendrites. If you transmit your information along an axon. What information you receive comes from a dendrite. The connection between an axon and a dendrite is referred to as the synapse, and that's a neurotransmitter gets transmitted between the two to pass the information on. It's chemical information passed on, causes an electrical response into the next one. Now this is where physics comes into it, and electrical engineering, because we experience something like that. Now if you're looking at that, you're not an engineer, a physicist or an electrician, you're going to go, what the hell is that? Well, it's a significator of electromagnetic field passing through or causing an electrical flux. Here's the interesting thing about electrons. Every time they move, they create a magnetic field around them. And we use magnetic fields to cause electrons to move. This is how we generate electricity. Now you would have been aware that over the years we've had a lot of people sort of poo-poo the idea of the human body having an aura. Well, we do, except it's called a different name these days. In modern medicine, clinically, it's referred to as a biofield, because all those electrical impulses that are running through your body, and there are thousands at any given second, they are creating an electromagnetic field around you. That's your biofield. And it has slightly different frequencies attached to it according to where that electrical signal has come from. Different color around the heart region because of the multiplexing method. Yeah. Now, in advanced science, particularly like with the CERN collider in Switzerland, they don't use humans to program the sensors because our biofield interferes with their sensors. And when they're sort of saying, well, that's all, hocus pocus, weird stuff, just remind them that every time you go to hospital, you have to have an ECG, electrocardiogram, or a brain scan in the form of an electroencephalogram. They put sensors on your surface of your skin to pick up the electromagnetic field that's emitted by that particular aspect of the brain or the heart. Yeah, we don't conduct it to the surface of the skin. It stays within our nerves. We just pick up on the magnetic field. Now, this phenomenon about electrons moving and creating magnetic fields is why in engineering we sometimes importantly shield our cables. And the top left is a high power mains cable, also known as steel wired armoured. The armouring reduces the electromagnetic field because it's grounded. Equally, coaxial cables, that's the one that brings signals to our TV. We use a shield to stop extraneous signals interfering with the signal that we want. That could also be seen on the bottom left, that's satellite cable. And now with data cables, we're starting with Cat6 cables, we're doing the same thing. We're shielding them to stop extraneous magnetic fields or to stop eavesdropping. The human brain does not have that kind of protection or that kind of shielding. So every time you think, you send signals down those axons. They create an electromagnetic field. That field goes external to the body, and if you happen to be nearby, you might pick it up. Who's been in a library sitting with their friends reading a book? You're there minding your own business, nobody's talking, and then all of a sudden somebody will go, what did you say? The person didn't say anything. What you did was you heard their thoughts. They transmitted out, you received it. Because here's the other part about any kind of conductor that's got electrons running along it. Not only does it transmit, but it receives. And it picks up extraneous signals. Low energy, low frequency. 3G, 4G, 5G, those are frequencies way outside of our capability of receiving, and they are so weak that our own biofield prevents any ingression by them. So anybody comes to you about sort of, oh, we've got to deal with 5G, what's their real agenda? Because it's not medical. They've got another agenda. Okay? Because that's pseudoscience. But, and this is where extrasensory perception comes from. The more of those axons and dendrites you have, the better your ability to receive extraneously from the normal five senses. And this is how extrasensory perception works. You pick up using the neurology of your own brain. It is not some supernatural, it's a practical, functional ability, one that you have had from birth. Now the intriguing thing is this ability for those axons and dendrites to not only transmit but also to receive, has been exploited medically for quite a number of years. This type of therapy was used to help people with severe depression. Also, if they've got manic depressive orders as well, to reduce those swings without the use of severe pharmaceutical drugs or even surgery. And it has been very, very successful and has been trialled by the NHS for the last 27 years. In fact, it is now so successful that you can actually buy your own. And this is exploiting that brain's ability to pick up extraneous low frequency, low energy magnetic fields. And this is how our extrasensory perception works. It sounds so easy, and it really is. Nobody can give you the ability to be psychic. You just are. Women are naturally more psychic or have more abilities in that area than men, purely because of the structure of the connections in her brain. So she's always going to be leaps and bounds. We've got, as us males, have got to work twice as hard to get half as far. Tables are turned sometimes, eh? Always a good one. We can do it. We have to learn. We have to work at it. For women, it comes naturally. Ask her mother. She will know if her child is hurt when he's on the other side, of a playing field. She intuitively knows because she's connected. She carried her for 9 months. He is an extension of her, and she is psychically connected. So he's operating on the same frequency as her. So she's going to hear him. She's going to feel his emotions. She's going to know when he's off, when he's upset. If you get a person with a good connection with each other, like a soulmate or something like that, you can get the same thing. I have it with her indoors here. To she that must be obeyed. We're starting to finish each other's sentences off. We're like twins, which is dangerous because I don't even know from 1 minute next where my brain is going anyway. Even I get confused. Now, that's as simple as I can really make it. If you want to expand, then use your sense. If you want to expand your clairvoyance, use your eyesight more. Look at things more deeply. Start to be aware of what's in your peripheral. Perhaps walk down a lane just relying on your peripheral vision. It's very good. And all the time that you're using and you're becoming more aware, you are creating more axons, more connections. The more connections you have, the easier it is for you to start seeing things further outside the normal field of vision. Because what you're getting in here are just signals. The signals are either from here or from the ether. If you've got a spirit nearby to you and they're screaming at you, why aren't you hearing them? Either they are working outside of your frequency of capability, by which case you can adjust, you can increase the array. More axons by listening into things, trying to discern a bird above the car engine or something like that. Focus different aspects. Use your touch, use your taste. Smell things more intently. Get a better picture. Like wine tasters do. They take their wine glass and sort of Oh yes, I've got hints of chocolate and blueberry. They're pretentious little shit, but they do. They are getting the taste or the smell of minerals that was in the soil. Not just being bloody pretentious, but they can actually do it because they've honed that particular skill. And it also means that you can be aware of different things when you go to places like a battlefield or anywhere. You'll be able to pick up the residual, and if there is a spirit that happens to be hanging around, you've increased your chances of communication. They might not be able to reach down to your particular frequencies, so they might present themselves in a visual sense. Don't forget, spirit is nothing more than an orb of consciousness. But what they can project into your brain is what they intend for you to see. Now, they might present themselves as they once were, or something that they like to look like, or they could just be an asshole and just decide to make it look ugly and try to freak the hell out of you. Because that's a possibility as well. I mean, Jen here for years used to have some dip around it, projecting the image of skulls. She would see skulls as she's closing her eyes and going to sleep. She would have skulls. Now, he's just being a little bugger, put it politely, trying to provoke a response. He may be low on energy, he's maybe an earthbound, by which case he's always going to be on the low ebb, and they can do that. Now, the thing about working your extrasensory perception or your sixth sense like that is, if you don't use it, you lose it. Because the human brain is very economical. It's not going to keep using energy to keep something in place that it's not going to use. So if you don't use it and keep it honed, then when you sleep, you produce something known as glial cell. And there's a tiny little protein that goes along your dendrites, and I mean, it sounds like a nightmare. That's like a horror movie, but it is you. You do this to yourself. It will recycle the materials. If the connection's not being used, it will remove it and recycle the chemicals back into something else that can be done. So if you don't use it, you lose it. But it's easy to keep it going. Just be very, very aware, either through sight, or through touch, or through your hearing. They're the three most important ones. Smell and taste, yeah, it's good, it's fun, like that, but there's other ones that give you a lot more information about what's going on around you and who you're connecting to. And that is a lot of fun. Yes, there are, like there is in humans, there are assholes of spirits who either have a very, very warped sense of humor or just like to play silly buggers with you. At least then you'll have the awareness. Okay? Now, like I said, I can't make this any more simpler than that. But there is physical and medical evidence to substantiate their ability to be able to pick it up. They even exploit it themselves to use that ability. Don't get bogged down with all this idea that you have to be initiated to be able to get it, or you have to be shown a specific way or whatever. That's just grifters after your money. It really is. Because you're born with this ability. We've always had this ability. One of the interesting things from an archaeological point is that we know that humans have been doing this for a long time, or certainly being very much aware in an energetic sense of their surroundings, because my field of study is between the Mesolithic and the Neolithic, When it came down to humanity settling down in the early days of their spirituality and then going on to farming, is they always chose as a settlement site an area, and this applies globally, it's not just a regional one, globally we see the same thing. They settle in an area where the Earth's magnetic field was at a high. Now the Earth's magnetic field is not evenly spaced because there are different types of rock and textures and anomalies as a result of the Coriolis effect, etc., etc., etc. I can go on for hours explaining about the geology and the of the planet. But every human in the earliest stages of, or the late stages of the Mesolithic into the early stages of the Neolithic, always settled where the Earth's magnetic field was heightened. Here at Bodmin, it is Bodmin Moor. You go there, you look at that, you see the background of the magnetic field, it is higher. You can actually find that information on from NASA. They've been studying the Earth's magnetic field because it's fluctuating naturally. It's not some weird man-made creation. It just does that every so many thousand years. It decides to flip polarity. Sounds like something out of Doctor Who. And they were very much aware of those magnetic fields, and I've actually taken maps of their magnetic fields and archaeological settlement sites and superimposed one on top of the other, and it really does apply around the world. So ancient humans, either 6,000 years ago, even to like 12,000 years ago, was using this facility to pick up the Earth's magnetic field and were drawn to it, either because it energized them, and equally when they started building their sacred sites, circles, they always picked granite because it has quartz in it, and quartz reacts quite interestingly inside a heightened magnetic field. It stabilizes the frequency, which is why it was always used in crystal set radios. A little piece of quartz inside would be used, you squeeze it a little bit and you can change the frequency of it. Clever, isn't it? It's an ability that we've always had, that over the later years we've either been drawn away from using and told it's just fluffy bunny stuff and there's tinky winky woo woo, or that you're crazy. That's another good one, but it isn't, it's there. And your aura is now known as the biofield in modern medicine. They are perfectly well aware it exists. They are perfectly well aware that your brain transmits, because they exploit it with their types of therapies, which are one of the good ones when it comes down to modern medicine. There's a lot of things in modern medicine you think, oh, that's well dodgy, you're not really curing the problem, you're dealing with symptoms. But no, this one, they're bang on. So if you know somebody that's bipolar, get them on the program. It really does help. It doesn't stop it, but it reduces it. It makes it a little bit more even. And that's just using the natural ability of the brain. Right, we'll leave that there because that's enough to take in. I'm going to save this video so you can go back over it. If you have any queries, ask the questions, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Sometimes I might actually come on and do it as a live, because it's sometimes easier, because I don't like typing. I like writing, but me and typing, I prefer to talk. Yeah, see her. Yeah, yeah, she knows I talk a lot. Okay. Any queries, ask the question and I'll answer it. But go back over it, get to see what it is that I'm talking about. And like I said, I can't make it any more simpler than this, but it is a known phenomenon that we use, and our bodies are it. We are naturally all born with the ability to be clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, whatever. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can get it away. To improve it, just use your sense that's attributed to it, and you will expand that part of the brain so it's able to receive the external information easier. If it gets to a point where it's too much and you start getting too much information, then stop using it by literally not listening, not being so intense in what you see, and it will gradually reduce down to a more manageable. But I don't know many people where it's gone that far. Okay, but there is a possibility. You might be one of the exceptions and go all into it and suddenly get inundated with either visions or sounds or something like that. But you can just sort of let it dwindle away, because it will. If you don't use it correctly, it will dwindle. Okay, so with that, I think we'll leave it there. So have a good evening.